Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The morning sun struggled to break through the large windows of Red Valley High School's main hall. The fresh air of early autumn was timidly filtering in, bringing with it the faint scent of wet leaves and earth. Yet, in the hallways, the atmosphere was already electric, almost chaotic. Lockers slammed loudly in time with the young students milling about, voices rising in a cacophony of laughter, whispers, and provocations. A few groups had formed, each trying to assert themselves in the school's social hierarchy. The jocks in embroidered jackets asserted themselves, the popular students cast domineering glances, while some more discreet ones tried to avoid overly curious glances. Amidst the commotion, the front door opened, revealing a silhouette that stood out from the usual surroundings. Luca Moretti appeared, alone, wearing a black leather jacket that was slightly worn at the shoulders. His backpack looked tired, bearing witness to long journeys or a turbulent past. His gait was silent, almost fluid, but not clumsy. He moved with a sort of imperturbable calm, a discreet assurance that stood out among the boisterous crowd. He wasn't smiling. He didn't exchange a glance. He wasn't seeking attention. Luca seemed almost invisible, or rather, he imposed a strange presence, a mixture of mystery and coldness. In a nearby huddle, Troy Adams, the beloved and tyrannical high school quarterback, caught his sidekick Chase's eye, a mocking smile ready to break out on his lips. His eyes fixed Luca with curiosity tinged with suspicion. "Who is this guy?" Troy asked sharply, as if to test the air. "A transfer," Chase replied, glancing furtively at Luca. "I think he's from New York or something." Troy frowned, his eyes narrowing slightly. He scrutinized Luca like one would assess a potential rival. This boy was unlike any other he'd seen in Red Valley. "He looks like a weird guy," Troy murmured, his voice low but full of menace. "You know what? We'll take care of him." Luca quickly learned that silence was his best weapon. In this high school where words were brandished like swords, where every sentence could ignite a fire, he preferred to be forgotten. He kept his head down, observing without interfering, analyzing every movement, every glance exchanged around him, never taking part in the conversations. In the cafeteria, he always sat alone at a table in the back, away from the loud laughter and the groups too busy asserting themselves. He slowly, methodically ate a sandwich he had hastily prepared at home, while distractedly leafing through a sketchbook he always carried with him. Party invitations rolled off him like water off a duck's back. He politely declined, even when teachers, intrigued by his loneliness, tried to approach him, offering advice or support. Luca remained distant, almost cold, and that was precisely what was beginning to annoy him. In the corridors, his silence was perceived not as strength, but as arrogance. A threat. That's why Troy Adams, Brad Simmons and Chase Miller, the high school's triple threat, quickly targeted Luca. At first, it was just minor provocations. A piece of paper thrown at his bag, a harmless jostle, sarcastic whispers behind his back. But Luca showed no reaction. No anger. No fear. Nothing. This lack of response angered the three boys. They had to break through this wall of indifference. One day, in a nearly deserted hallway, as Luca was closing his metal locker with its characteristic metallic sound, Troy suddenly appeared. With a quick movement, he slammed him against the locker, his shoulders squeezed between the cold metal and Troy's weight. "You think you're better than us, Moretti?" he snapped, his voice a mixture of anger and contempt. "Huh? Do you have a mafia name or something? You sound like you think you're someone else." Luca didn't blink. He held that burning gaze, his face calm, impassive, almost icy. Then, slowly, he said, "Be careful what you trigger." The tone was calm, but the implicit threat hung heavy in the air. A short, tense silence, then Troy burst out laughing, a raspy, mocking laugh. Brad, who had taken out his phone, was filming the scene, already ready to share this humiliation. "Ooh, I'm scared," he said, exaggerating a fake fear, causing Chase to laugh nervously. What no one knew was that the name, Moretti, wasn't just a surname. It was a legacy. A shadow hanging over the city. A promise that Luca's silence wasn't weakness, but a contained storm. And in those corridors, the game had only just begun. After the tumultuous hours spent at Red Valley High, Luca returned each evening to a place that seemed almost unreal, on the edge of town, a discreet manor, nestled behind high stone walls and surrounded by carefully tended vegetation, which filtered the daylight and made the estate almost invisible to prying eyes. This wasn't a flashy luxury castle, not one of those ostentatious villas you saw in magazines. No, this mansion exuded austerity and rigor, with its shuttered windows, cobblestone walkways, and surveillance cameras positioned with military precision. A fortress rather than a home. Inside, silence reigned. A heavy, sometimes almost oppressive silence, where every step echoed in the vast corridors, their walls adorned with ancient portraits, ancestors with stern gazes that seemed to constantly judge Luca. The atmosphere was not warm, but rather that of a sanctuary where rules and traditions dictated every gesture. His father, Vittorio Moretti, was a towering figure in this world. The undisputed head of the Moretti family, he commanded a discreet but powerful empire. This clan, one of the oldest and most respected, or feared, in Chicago, had its roots in the shadows of business, between loyalty, codes of honor, and constant danger. Luca, an only child, had grown up in this strange duality, between lessons in discipline and meaningful silences, between advice given in hushed rooms and secret meetings in basements where the scent of old wood and cigar smoke still lingered. He had learned to read between the lines, to understand without question. But above all, he had learned to hide. His father always repeated to him, in a firm voice with no room for argument. "You're not like the others, my son. You're a Moretti. You bear a name that is respected, but also feared. You have no room for error." These words weighed on Luca like invisible armor, but also like a cage. Every day, he felt this pressure, this expectation, this weight of destiny imposed on him. Yet, deep down, Luca dreamed of something else. He didn't want this life woven with shadows and violence. He just wanted to go unnoticed. Be a normal teenager. Go to school, play sports, have friends without fear of stares or reprisals. Laugh without ulterior motive. Live. But this dream always seemed out of reach, because of a name that chained him, because of an inheritance he didn't want. The next morning, as the sun struggled to break through the gray clouds of Red Valley, Troy Adams headed to his parking lot as usual, secure in his position as king of the school. But when he pulled up to his car, a big black sedan, a symbol of his status, he felt his stomach clench. The door was covered in red graffiti, Italian words he didn't understand but which had a menacing look: "Respect the family, last warning, final warning." The tires were flat, lying deflated on the ground like dead snakes. The shattered windows let in the cold, damp morning air. Troy touched the cold metal of the car's bodywork in disbelief. At first, he thought it was a silly joke, revenge from another student, or a simple act of vandalism. But then his phone vibrated in his pocket. An anonymous message had just arrived. "Don't touch Luca again. Final warning." He showed the message to Brad and Chase, his two best allies, who burst out laughing nervously. "What's this all about? Mafia simulator IRL?" Brad laughed, swiping the text with his fingertips. But the humor quickly faded when strange events began to unfold in the days that followed. Brad learned that his father had lost a major contract with an Italian-American consortium without explanation, a deal he was counting on to pay for the family's education. Chase, meanwhile, saw his sister suddenly refuse discreet financial aid she'd been receiving for months. No one knew where the money came from, but she'd now cut ties with these mysterious benefactors, preferring to rely on her own strength. As for Troy, one evening, returning home late, he saw two men in dark suits standing motionless in front of his house. Their gaze was fixed, heavy with innuendo. They didn't speak, didn't move. They were simply there to send a message. Troy stopped about 10 meters away, his car engine still running, paralyzed by fear he had never felt before. Meanwhile, at school, rumors were rife. A history teacher, Mr. Reeves, troubled by the rumors and rising tensions, decided to find out more. Using his contacts, he consulted archives and files, and eventually came across a detailed file, the identity of Vittorio Moretti, Luca's father, and his role in the local mafia. He read, his eyes widening, paled, then gently closed the file, aware that this went far beyond academic matters. The next day, the director summoned Luca to his office. "Luca, I don't know exactly what's going on. But you have to understand that here, you're a student like any other," he said in a tone that was both firm and worried. Luca, motionless, his gaze clear, answered simply. "That's what I would like to be, sir. Believe me." As he walked out into the hallway, he bumped into Troy. For the first time, the bully didn't offer any provocation. Instead, he looked away, head bowed, aware that he had crossed a line he wouldn't cross again. A heavy silence fell between them, marked by respect mixed with fear, but also by a strange, mute understanding. Days passed, but at Red Valley High, the apparent calm hid a storm brewing. Whispers turned into rumors, and rumors into distorted truths, amplified by fear and the fertile imaginations of teenagers. It was said that Luca Moretti wasn't just a taciturn boy who came out of nowhere. No, he was the shadow who made others bend. At his old high school, it was said, a boy had mysteriously disappeared. No one knew exactly how or why, but everyone understood what it meant. That Luca had acted ruthlessly, and that no one would ever dare to bother him. It was rumored that he was trained in the handling of weapons, that he knew combat like no one else, that he had undergone secret training that only the most powerful could afford. Some even spoke of networks of cleaners, men in the pay of his father, Vittorio Moretti, capable of making anyone who threatened their empire disappear. But Luca never said a word to confirm these stories. Nor did he deny anything. His calculated silence maintained the aura of mystery that surrounded him. Gradually, the high school bullies stopped approaching him. Their provocations had transformed into a cautious mixture of respect and fear. The once contemptuous stares were now more measured. Yet this new reputation also attracted other attention. Some students, curious or eager to be close to the chief's son, tentatively attempted to establish connections. Discreet invitations to share a meal, questions asked in the library, glances exchanged in the hallways. But Luca remained faithful to his chosen solitude. He always sat at the same table, at the back of the cafeteria, far from the hustle and bustle, far from the pretenses. In class, he kept to himself, preferring to immerse himself in rare books, old Italian novels that he read with passion, rediscovering the Italy of his ancestors within their pages. In the evening, when he returned home, another solitude awaited him. To escape, he played the piano, letting his fingers run over the keys, expressing through music what words could not. It wasn't glory he sought, nor power. What he deeply desired was peace. One evening, in the hushed silence of the manor, while the moon faintly lit the drawn curtains of his father's study, Luca was called by his father. Vittorio Moretti, standing behind his large, solid wooden desk, looked at him intensely. "I was told you were provoked," he said simply. "And that you did nothing. Why?" Luca hesitated for a moment, searching for the right words. Then, softly, he answered. "Because I don't want to live in fear, father. I want to be respected for who I am. Not because of your shadow." A silence fell. Vittorio scrutinized his son, trying to guess his thoughts, his hidden strengths. Finally, he stepped forward, stretched out his hand, and shook it firmly. "You're stronger than I thought, Luca." For the first time, this gesture was not that of a leader in command, but that of a proud father. Months had passed since his arrival at Red Valley High, and the school year was drawing to a close. Luca Moretti, the boy everyone had initially ignored, mocked, and feared, had graduated with unanimous praise from the faculty. His seriousness, rigor, and discretion had earned everyone unanimous praise. Yet, he had never sought to become popular. He didn't desire the spotlight or the applause. He remained a mystery to his comrades. In the corridors, the rumor mill had shifted. Those who once mocked him now avoided him with a mixture of respect and fear. The mocking laughter had given way to heavy silences. Even Troy Adams, the fallen king of the school, the one who once ruled by force and intimidation, had adopted a new attitude. In a whisper, to the newcomers, he often repeated, "Him. You don't want to upset him. Trust me." Troy was no longer the tyrant. His gaze had lost that arrogant glint, replaced by a tacit recognition of Luca's quiet strength. As for Luca, he continued on his way, alone, unperturbed. Hands buried in the pockets of his worn jeans, he walked with the same silent, almost meditative gait. He hadn't become a tyrant, nor an imposing leader. He hadn't sought to dominate, nor to seek revenge. He wore his silence like armor, a conscious choice, a refuge. He had become the son of silence. A boy who, in a noisy and aggressive world, had found his strength in inner peace, in self-acceptance, and in the quiet power of respect earned without violence. And with every step he took, he reminded everyone that sometimes, true power lies in calm, restraint, and dignity.